Lately, I've been wrestling with the data aspect of making content. Not so much in the sense of feeding the algorithm. Of course, posting a lot tells the computer you exist more times than if you didn't post a lot, and it rewards you with more reach, but rather in the sense of the audience perspective. The parasocial reality that when your concept of someone is constructed from internet posts, your mental image of who they are as a person is only as detailed as the frequency of data points they share with you. In other words, someone like myself, who has never had a real upload schedule and posts once a month if I'm really grinding, must appear to you in the form of a low-poly image. In the unit of opinions of movies, your recent data consists of, this guy was mixed on trap, and then a month later he was mixed on the substance, and that is my identity to you. And maybe this is me thinking about myself too much, but this is all to say, I need to stop being so precious in the name of data and just start reviewing shit. So in answering the dubiously phrased question that comprises this video's title, Joker 2, not good actually. Cloak and Dagger, you've been clickbaited. I'm sorry, I had to do it, but you're here now. So let's chat. Look, I would love to be the kind of contrarian that actually loved Joker 2 in a galaxy brain sort of way. That would be so good for me, algorithmically speaking. But unfortunately, the movie is just not good. Actually, if you hated Joker 2 and clicked on this video out of morbid curiosity, then I rescind my apology. I'm only sorry to the people who sincerely liked the movie and were hoping to feel seen by this video. Genuinely. For what it's worth, I really liked the opening cartoon. I thought that was everything I wanted the actual movie to be. In general, though, I'm sorry I can't be your ally on this one. But you shouldn't let my opinion, nor anyone else's for that matter, keep you from liking what you like. That, of course, goes for every movie. Now, that being said, clearly this is Todd Phillips trying to wash his hands of the first Joker movie and put an end to that zeitgeist nuke, something that was well-meaning-ish, but far exceeded his intentions or control and turned into a cultural monstrosity. To give this message of, alright everyone, let's all just calm down a little bit, as the filmmaker himself is bold, and I think I speak for many when I say that with each announcement about the movie regarding its musical nature or Lady Gaga's casting, this Psychosis Spectacular appeared to be a radical and exciting departure from the first movie, a formal fuck you to anyone who took it too seriously.
I got the sneaking suspicion that we're not giving the people what they want.
And it kind of is that fuck you, but Phillips's way of going about it is kind of self-destructive. This is a textbook, raspy, talk-singing musical, the kind that's become popular over the past decade or so, and I've defended that approach in the past with other movies. I thought people were being a little too dogmatic and pedantic about La La Land being more low-key than its grand ambition advertised, for instance. But this is the one that really broke me. By the end, whenever Joaquin Phoenix or Lady Gaga would open their mouths, I'd literally recoil in preparation. I don't know if it's just a matter of song choice or bland choreography, whenever there is choreography, which is not very often. By and large, this trend began as a means of subverting what we classically understand a musical to be and trying to bring a more immediate, down-to-earth flair about it, and it seems Phillips wants in on that subversion. The trouble is that, since Joker itself is already a subversion, and that classical understanding of a musical is already a departure from the Joker framework, Phillips now finds himself at the end of a long line of flip-flops. What if someone took this classically campy character and grounded him in a gritty crime drama? Then what if someone took that gritty crime drama and turned it into a campy musical extravaganza? Then what if someone took that campy musical extravaganza and ground it back down into the kind of homogenous, talk-singing musical that dominates the genre now? It's one big double negative that leads Phillips right back to where he began, only having lost any and all value along the way. It's not just in tone that this movie, again, so set on divorcing itself from the first one, falls back into the same mold. The visual language is exactly the same as the first movie, often with such blatant parallels in setting and shot composition, you have to wonder if this is just the only movie he has left in him at this point. To be a little more fair, I'd say the parallels serve the purpose of showing us the fall side of Joker's rise and fall, a little Godfather Part 2 action, if you will. But there's surprisingly little new image making going on here, which in retrospect is apt when the first movie was already so beholden to its influences. It's only natural that a sequel to such direct cribbing devolves into snake eating its own tail territory, using the imagery of the first movie to reconstruct the events of the first movie via the characters of the first movie recounting them and explaining how fucked up it was. This is what the film's courtroom drama amounts to. I wouldn't be surprised if the impetus of the story was Todd Phillips thinking, what if we just did the Seinfeld finale, but with our comedian? And I say that as a Seinfeld finale apologist. If anything, this had the potential to be Phillips's most personal film. He has had direct relationships with monstrous people in prison. He was pen pals with John Wayne Gacy. If Joker 1 was channeling the transgressions of an outcast like hated subject G.G. Allen, then it only makes sense that its more meta sequel would channel the man who helped finance Hated. Instead, Phillips gets such tunnel vision indicting his toxic fan base that he loses sight of all the other brilliant things he has available to him. Case in point, Lady Gaga, who's marketed as the co-lead of the film, but has no meat to chew on in her role and no substantial impact on the story whatsoever. So, the Joker comes. This is huge for him. I don't know if you knew this, but he's never done that before. We even get a reprise of the Joker theme, so we know this is major. And in theory, this relationship is supposed to rattle him to his core. Half the reason he became the Joker in the first place is because of inceldom. So already, a significant departure from something we've learned to be pretty essential to the identity of this iteration of the character. All Lee Quinzel really accomplishes, though, is getting Arthur to represent himself in court and fire his lawyer, which basically just leads to some really awful bits like the Southern drawl, and does nothing to shake up a case that was a foregone conclusion, and at no point changes or intensifies. Lee exacerbates the tension between Arthur and Joker, essentially being a fan who likes the character and not the actor, and this motivating her insistence that Arthur lean fully into Joker. But aside from that, everything that happens in this movie is because of the Joker mob. Lee, while maybe more directly present on a scene-to-scene level, is an afterthought. The one thing they set up with Lee is that she has a proclivity for starting fires. And maybe that was performative since she was faking her mental illness and circumstances anyway, but the film goes to great lengths to establish this about her. We watch her start a fire, and then when the courtroom explodes and saves Joker, the culprit is, you guessed it, one of the Joker fanboys, and not Lee. And look, I don't know. I don't know if it would have been any better if it was her. Maybe we were supposed to initially think it was her, and then experience Arthur's disappointment that it wasn't. She's such an ancillary part of the story, I just don't even know what I wanted out of her. Even her finale goes out with a whimper, and I've toiled with some charitable readings. Maybe she's siphoned off because she's also in his head, like Zazie Beetz in the first one. This was a popular fan theory leading up to the film's release, but Lee is enough of a presence publicly in the film, her existence confirmed by all the other characters, to shoot down that reading. Knowing the post-production hell and scenes that got deleted, I think Phillips really just didn't know what he wanted from the character because, again, his focus was on this Joker mob. And maybe that would have worked if he had any idea what he was doing with them either. The real cardinal sin of this film is that Phillips seems unable to diagnose what the Joker movement that's become so bad is all about. They don't represent any actual belief system. Their only demand in the movie is free Joker. We don't know what the movement actually amounted to. We don't see the fallout of Gotham after the death of Thomas Wayne. We don't even get so much as a mention of that being incited by the Joker in the first movie. And I'm of the opinion that you can only get away with all the fan-servicey Batman origins, like the Wayne's murder or Harvey Dent becoming Two-Face, if you're gonna somehow tie those back into, if not the character, then the broader world of the Joker. But he's only on trial for those 5 murders. By his own admission, he actually killed 6 people, including his mother, although I have to ask, was the implication of the bloody footprints at the end of the first film not that he killed his caseworker? Maybe this is meant to leave it open to interpretation, what we think they represent. Maybe it's that any group that stoops to such violent measures is bad, but I think it's just a cop-out. It's either relying on the meta-ethos of real-life incel Joker fans, or it's intentionally vague. And I think this stems from Phillips finally unspooling the contradictions of the first movie, which attempts to be an empathetic commentary on a broken system, and also the story of a guy who just goes crazy and is not meant to speak for marginalized communities or the mentally ill. So if these followers are rallying behind the cause of good healthcare, helpful allocation of tax money, the death of big business, surely we can't show any of that as the cause for this evil mass. But then if they're just like men's rights activists, then they lose any of the political salience that ballooned the original Joker into the phenomenon it was. So Phillips leaves it vague, lets us fill in the gaps, and guess what? There's nothing. He tries to do what he did for society in the first movie with the prison system here, whose lack of rehabilitative justice, to say the least, is what does Arthur in. In doing so, Phillips seems to funnel the entire Joker saga into a story of abuse and assault, which is the last straw and finally gets Arthur to give up on everything. But then once again, the thing that kills him is not execution, not abuse by the guards, not a femme fatale, but another crazy fan who by killing him seems to be fanatically doing his bidding, after Arthur's own confession in court. At every turn, Phillips takes the potential of his setups and channels them back into the price of fame and having a toxic fan base, and the net result is about exactly as boring as that sounds. Killing the Joker, if nothing else, seems like an act of eliminating any possibility of doing future Joker movies. And I can respect burning $200 million to do that, though I have to ask, what did those $200 million go toward? There are so fewer locations than the first movie, so much less happens. It was cool watching it on the big Lincoln Square IMAX screen with the aspect ratio changes, but surely that can't account for everything. Did it all just go towards licensing the most obvious needle drops imaginable? I think the Sinatra estate was the real winner of this enterprise. Look, I'm not a big fan of the first movie. When it came out, I prided myself in having the very nuanced take that it was not a complete abomination and has its technical merits, but also wasn't very good either. When I rewatched it in prep for Joker 2, I liked it even less. But somehow this movie was so bad that every time it flashed back to the first Joker movie, I somehow became nostalgic for it. That movie had set pieces, memorable images, a narrative that built to something, even if it was all kinda dumb. The last thing you want when you're apologizing for making a movie is to make people want to watch the movie you're apologizing for instead of the movie you're apologizing through. Whatever. Todd Phillips is free now. Granted, free from a prison of his own making, but if it took him soiling himself to get out, good for him. That's it from me this time around on Joker Folie de... I don't speak French. I'm sorry. You can find more bonus content on patreon.com/TaylorJWilliams. You will soon be able to find the bulk of my New York Film Festival coverage there. I'm gonna do some on the channel publicly, but certainly not enough to not warrant checking out patreon.com/TaylorJWilliams. You can also find me on various social media. Links will be on screen and in the description. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.